Hi guys, how are you all doing today? I hope you're great. Well, I'm going to start today's lesson with some questions. Do you sometimes feel like people don't understand you? Or do you constantly find yourself saying, "Oh no, that's not what I meant to say, this is what I am trying to say"? Well, if that happens all the time, the problem could be your intonation. But let's find out. What is intonation and how can you use it in daily conversation? Let's start with the first question. What is intonation? In English, intonation is the rise and fall of your voice when you speak. What do I mean? I mean that as humans, the voice does not remain at the same pitch, at a level pitch all through. If this happens, speech will be boring and uninteresting. So there's always a movement, up to down to up, when we speak. There are several intonation patterns in English, but in today's video, I'm just going to talk about two of them, the most important intonation patterns, the rising intonation and the falling intonation. What is the rising intonation? It is the movement of your voice from, you can guess, when we say rising, low to high. So the rising intonation means that the voice gradually goes from a low pitch to a much higher pitch. The rising intonation is very common in yes/no questions. Here are some examples. Take note of how my voice rises on the last stressed syllable. Are you going home? Are you going home? Home? Is that my book? 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 Do you know her? Do you know her? The rising intonation is also used for alternative questions. Do you like tea or coffee? Tea or coffee? Do you want to buy an apple or a banana? Do you want to buy an apple or a banana? Apple? Apple? You also use the rising intonation for introductory phrases. If he calls, ask him to come. If he calls, ask him to come. And finally, you use the rising intonation to make a list. My friend Tom has a cat, a dog, a rabbit, and a goat. A cat, a dog, a rabbit, and a goat. So you'll notice that the voice drops on goat because that is the last word. So you keep rising on every word until you get to the last. Now let's go to the falling intonation. The falling intonation pattern means that your voice starts a little bit high and ends low. So it goes from high to low, high to low. The falling intonation is very common in WH questions. Let's look at some examples. Take note of how my voice falls on the last stressed syllables. Where did you go? Where did you go? What are you doing? What are you doing? Where is my book? Where is my book? You also use a falling intonation for commands. Sit down. Sit down. Don't make a noise. Don't make a noise. For definite statements, you also use a falling intonation. That's my father. That's my father. I just bought a new house. I just bought a new house. Give it to me. Give it to me. That's for the falling intonation. Now you have to be careful. In English, Intonation affects the meaning of what you say. So the sentence, "That's my book," "That's my book," said with the falling intonation will have a totally different meaning if you say that same sentence with rising intonation. It will go this way. "That's my book," "That's my book." Listen to both sentences again. "That's my book." That shows that I am sure that that is my book. "That's my book" could possibly mean, well, are you sure that's my book? So intonation affects the meaning of a sentence. Now, I'm going to tell you something you may not have heard before or something you've been trying to understand. Most people say, okay, what do I do if I have a tag question? These type of questions are really very different from ordinary questions. What do I do? What intonation do I use? Well, it's very simple. If you use a rising intonation with a tag question, you're simply saying, well, I am not sure of what I just said, so please confirm that what I said is true. That is what it means. Let's take some examples. You ate the food, didn't you? Didn't you? I'm trying to be sure. I want you to tell me if you actually ate the food. You believe me, don't you? Don't you? Don't you? So you tell me, do you believe me? Okay, that is what it means. Now, if you use the following intonation with a tag question, you're telling your listener, I know that what I have said is a fact, so please agree with me. Another example. You ate the food, didn't you? Didn't you? Well, it means that I'm trying to say, well, I know you ate the food, so just say yes. So there you have it. If you use a rising intonation with a tag question, you're trying to tell your listener that you're not sure. You just want to be sure. And if you use a falling intonation, you're saying, well, I know that what I said is true, so just tell me I am right. So there you are. Feel free to use all of these intonation patterns in your daily conversation. And practice, practice, practice. That makes it very easy to make improvements. Let's review. What have we talked about? We said that intonation is the rise and fall of the voice during speech. And there are several intonation patterns, but we talked about the two most important intonation patterns, the rising intonation and the falling intonation. We talked about the uses of the rising intonation. For yes-no questions, to make a list, for alternative questions and introductory phrases. And then we talked about the falling intonation, which is a drop in the pitch of the voice. And we talked about the uses for definite statements, for WH questions, and for commands. And then we talked about intonation with tag questions. If you have any questions or you need further help to improve your intonation, feel free to send a message or leave a comment in the comment section below. Thanks for watching and have a great day.